8:16 a.m., March 30th, 2019. We have set up just south of the Big Manatee River to watch the inbound juice train, empties, and mixed freight for Seminole Gulf and other industries in the Bradenton area. So as this video starts, quick shout out to the crew of this juice train today. Y'all were the coolest crew I've ever seen on this train. They gave me a bunch of horn shows at every single spot, and I caught this train almost everywhere I could. So special thanks to these guys right here. A few miles back south is Kotabeaner Yard. The inbound train must yard its consist, which is always started by the huge bang. Oh, the sound I have become so used to in this area. They shove the mixed part of the consist into the yard to get it out of the way, so they can shove the rest of the empty juice cars into the yard without the freight being in the way. Empty cars are pulled out past the switch, conductor lines the switch, and the train is on its way back into the yard, but will have to be broken up into at least another piece. Locomotive stopped just short of the railroad crossing, but after switching tracks one more time, which I cut out of the video just to save time, the two AC-44s backed the entire train onto another yard track, and that first AC-4400 is definitely showing its hard work this morning. Next move is the loads. The yard switcher, a solo SD40-3 number 4035, pulls with all its might the loaded juice cars out past the switch and shoves them up just toward 301, US 301, where it waits for the power and mixed freight cars to pull up, hook on, and leave. We didn't happen to catch the shoving move, but we did catch the return of the yard switcher to the yard. And the next move stated. The power went down to hook onto the empty mixed freight cars that were stored on the past track, and now they're heading up parallel to the loaded juice cars to hook on and leave, while first getting an EC1 number from dispatch. For anybody who may be confused by that railroad terminology, an EC1 number from dispatch is basically a statement from the dispatcher saying that a train has permission between point A and point B, those points being specified by dispatch. And after receiving that permission between there and Tampa, 08-2330, the loaded juice train departs Bradenton northbound at about 11:30 a.m. Of course, before these guys went anywhere, they made sure that the bridge tender on the Big Manatee River was setting the drawbridge down and locking it so they could cross the big river. Just north of downtown Palmetto was our next spot. And here's one of my points on how this was one of the coolest crews ever to be on the juice train. Rarely heard on CSX trackage, this engineer gave me what's called a shave and a haircut. It's a type of horn show that is based off of a song called Shave and a Haircut. There was also no crossing here, so any horn you heard was for me or somebody random in the area that I didn't see. The infamous curve at Port Manatee was our next location. Next location is an old amber signal that is basically an approach for the Little Manatee River about a mile to our south. And yes, this is the clip I use for my new intro. Now here is something I did not plan to see today. We went north and got a bite to eat toward Tampa. However, we found the juice train again. He was in Sutton Siding, which is about 10 miles south of Tampa, and he was sitting there because there was a local coming into the siding to switch an industry there. However, before the local could switch the industry, the juice train got a signal at the north end of the siding and moved north. The train in the siding was Y103, a local train that goes south on the Palmetto Sub and switches local industries just out of the way of Yeoman Yard. And this one was a very interesting one. Y103 was switching an industry called Harkrose Chemicals, which specializes in everything from water treatment and mining to oil and gas production. Judging by the number on this tank car, I'm guessing that it was carrying either gasoline or oil, which is why I find it kind of ironic that they transport this stuff down this kind of spur track. The conductor guides the engineer to couple onto the empty tank. They pull the empty tank out. And then they did a move that I've never seen before, especially in this area. I wouldn't have expected a local team to do this, but it does make sense for efficiency. They did a move what's called a hump, which is where they shoot a train car off, and so it just barely glides to a stop, and it will couple onto the consist on its own, so the crew doesn't have to back the entire train down and pull all the way back past the switch. And now the crew finishes the squeaky job by pushing in the loaded tank. When the crew's finally done, they pull what's left of the train back past the switch, close the industry gates, and once they pull their consist past the switch, they hook on to what's left of the consist on the main line and continue south to do their other duties, which I didn't watch. From that point, we left and went to the entrance of Yeoman Yard from the Palmetto Sub side, and we somehow again ended up catching 0823, and we got to give one last wave to the awesome crew. And just afterwards came the train we were waiting on. Oh 075030. He was headed all the way to Bradenton, even though we didn't catch the entire way, but we caught most of his work in between the two places. 0750 is another local train, which is basically just like a lot of the other ones in the area, except depending on the day, he'll switch any industry between Tampa and Bradenton. These being a few lumber companies, Port Manatee, the Parish Spur, Conrad Yelvington, and Rockport. We immediately heard talk of him wanting to shove his train into Rockport, so that's where we went. But when we got there, there was another train yarding its consist for departure. 2 SD40-3s on point for this one. Once the other train got into the yard, then it was 0750's turn. He shoved his train in with no problem. When I see him shoving into Rockport, I'm assuming he's going to pick up more cars. But I thought wrong. He actually dropped off all the covered hoppers he came in with, leaving him with nothing but 3 cars to head south toward Bradenton with. The train had a restricting signal on the Rockport Y, so leapfrogging him to Gibsonton was no problem at all. Here we get some nice pacing shots through downtown Gibsonton just past the Alafia River southbound. After this, I was hoping to beat him to the Little Manatee River. I didn't. He and a bridge tender who had just finished closing the Little Manatee River swing bridge were both already there. However, I was able to catch 0750 coming out of a stop.
You're good to go. Smile for the camera. White truck out here.
This would be the last shot we'd get of 0750 before he'd enter the black hole of the Palmetto Sub, as I call it. The quote, black hole of the Palmetto Sub, is Port Manatee Yard. Whenever this local comes to switch this yard, he always sits until dark. And that's just what happened this time. So, we could not chase him any further than this. So, on the Palmetto Subdivision at milepost 905.0, this is Kotabeaner, out.